Hello, everyone. Can I get a couple people in the chat to just let me know that you can hear me okay? And you can see me.
We can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone, to the 5th annual Shift into Winter. I'm really, really excited to have all of you here this evening for this event. My name is Laura Eisted. I'm the Executive Director of Two Wheel View, which I'll talk about in a moment. This is, like I said, this is the 5th annual Shift into Winter. It's our annual celebration of winter cycling and our 2nd year of doing this event virtually, which allows us to include folks from all across Canada, which is really awesome. And we even have some folks signed up. You'll have to let us know if you're here from the US, as well as Sweden, which is really cool and very unexpected. So welcome to everyone. We look forward to meeting you at the tables after our panel presentation. First, I would like to kick off our evening with a land acknowledgement. In the spirit of reconciliation, I invite you to take a moment to reflect upon the land and traditional territories on which you find yourself today. At Two Wheel View and the City of Calgary, we acknowledge that we live, work, play, and ride our bikes on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, and the Tsuut'ina Nation, the Iari Nakota of the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley Nations, as well as Métis Region 3, and all people who make their home in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. We acknowledge all nations, Indigenous and non, who work, live, and play on this land and who honor and celebrate this territory. As participants now gathered here in this virtual version of the heart of Treaty 7 territory, we acknowledge that we have ongoing responsibilities to protect and acknowledge and honor all of the life within our shared reality as treaty people. If land acknowledgement is new to you and this is maybe the first time that you've heard something like this, I invite you to copy the link that I'll pop into the chat after this to check out the video to learn more. For those of you that are not familiar with Two Wheel View, or perhaps a refresher for those who do know us, we are a registered charity that operates here in we provide social emotional learning programming for youth using the bicycle as our vehicle for change. Our impact ranges from teaching life skills while enabling youth to earn their own bikes to providing paid mechanic and employability training for young people who face barriers to employment, to repurposing and responsibly recycling bike donations from the community. In order to continue to meet the growing needs of those we serve, we are always seeking ways to reach more people, deliver more programs, and provide more access to bikes and the opportunities that bikes provide. We rely on donations to keep our programs rolling forward and enabling youth to access our programs without any cost barriers. We just ask that you please keep us in mind for your future charitable giving, and we're kicking off our year-end campaign here shortly. And we have a QR code in the whiteboard of our table once we get back to the table format that you can make a donation if you so choose. I'm super grateful to all of you for supporting us. Those of you that have already supported us, we're super grateful and continue to keep the wheels turning at Two Wheel View. And we look forward to having many more opportunities like this to connect and opportunities for connection in the future, and hopefully more in person as well. I'll ask Dean from Connection Events to give us a quick overview on how to use the platform and what it's going to look like when we move away from speaker mode into the more social table mode. Dean?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Am I on today? Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I just had a computer meltdown, so I'm on like a laptop that I pulled out of the desk an hour ago, so I probably shouldn't tell stuff like that, but yeah, so I'll share my screen here, and you can see on the other screen here, this is the pub that you entered into, or the restaurant, sorry, not a pub. We have kids here tonight, no, but we're open until 9 p.m. for kids are fine. So once you're in the room here, you can see my avatar there at the Just for Kids table. Let me move. Sorry, this is there, I moved. If you can't find yourself in the pub, on the bottom left corner, there's a button here that would go "You are here," so this will help you find yourself. We encourage everybody to update your profile also by clicking your avatar click your edit button. You can put in your company name, your headline, who you are, LinkedIn, Facebook, all those great things. And again, to move around the pub, right now I'm at the Just for Kids table. I'm old, getting old, my eyes are going, so I have to zoom right in to see some of those table names. And Laura mentioned the two-wheel view table. So you can see, double click to move there. This is a slow computer, so it might take a minute. And once you're at a table, you'll see you'll have a whiteboard, your taskbar when we're back in the restaurant. And I don't believe the whiteboard's on this table, but this is where Laura mentioned you can find the two-wheel view impact report, the QR code for, there you go. And the other piece I wanted to point out is up above here, you'll see banners. So you'll see two-wheel view, City of Calgary, and Connection Events. Connection Events is our events company, a social enterprise out of the Autism Asperger's Friendship Society. And then you'll see another banner on the other side, which is Cold Bike. And once we get back in the room, we encourage everybody to move around the room. It's very simple. Everything should work seamlessly if you're not on an old computer like I am right now. Is anybody has any questions? I'm around. I don't want to interrupt the event. We're here for to learn all about shifting into winter on the bike side. Laura, did I miss anything as I ran through? Kind of panicked as far as your experience with Remo?
No, that was perfect. Thanks so much, Dean. You'll get the hang of it once we get back into the restaurant mode after our panel. So definitely, utilize the chat to connect and provide and ask questions. Dean will be hanging out there too. I will also be behind the scenes during the panel. If there's questions or things that you need help with, we're happy to assist. And the whiteboard function's really cool on all of those tables because you can contribute to them. So if you put things in there, we'll go through if there's resources that you have or that you know of that you'd like to share with everyone else. Please put it in there. We'll compile them all, and then we will do a blog post at our Two-Wheel View site and send an email out with the recording of this event. So Dean, can you make sure we hit record? And then we will also compile all of those resources for everybody so that everybody has access to the resources that they would want. I'm going to turn it over to our moderator now. Asid, are you out there in the crowd? There you are. Amazing. I will turn it over to you and enjoy the panel. We'll talk.
Thanks, Laura and Dean. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a real privilege to help facilitate this conversation. It's really become an annual tradition of note in the Calgary biking community. And along with the other few silver linings of the pandemic, it's great that we, as a community, have found a way to make its reach even bigger by expanding it virtually to everyone, anywhere in the world who wants to register and come. So welcome, everybody. I have the pleasure to moderate tonight's panel discussion. I will spend as little time talking as I can help it and really allow some of the leading lights of winter biking, and especially winter biking as a family or as kids in the country to have the day. And I'm going to ask the panelists to come on the stage, as it were, in a moment, or at any time, should you please. And we'll get started by having them introduce themselves, and then we'll move right into the questions. I believe we have till, depending on how the conversation's going, we have till about 7 o'clock or shortly thereafter Mountain Time in Calgary. So right now it is 6:19 p.m. So we should have enough time for quite a detailed discussion and to hear from each of the panel members multiple times and to set the stage for some smaller discussions when we move back to the restaurant mode that we were just in. My name is Asid Chaudhry. Thank you for the land acknowledgement, Laura. I'll just take a note to acknowledge as well that I think it's very relevant for a conversation like this when we are talking about transportation and sustainable transportation. While I don't think we'll quite get into it today, but we will in some ways. Issues of equity and privilege, and even in some ways reconciliation and our relationships with our Indigenous neighbors are part and parcel of this topic. So we can see in Calgary, some of us live a stone's throw away from our neighbors, the Tsuut'ina Nation, and until recently there was little or no connections or travel or amenities that were open for both communities to travel and visit with each other, and we're only seeing that change now. I'm somebody personally who never planned on being a winter cyclist. We'll hear the stories from our panel members soon, how they got into this. It just happened gradually. And over a few years, my wife and I both became very curious how we became more and more comfortable riding in the winter. And we were just curious how you replaced more and more car trips, including kids, including groceries, and found ways to do it with some planning. So we got into it more and more. And some planning is very long term. Not everything is easily done quickly. You know, we planned for a decade before we got our cargo bike. And now with two kids, 4-month-old and a 4-year-old, the biggest limit we have is the pandemic. There's not a lot you can do out there safely that we used to find common, that we used to take the opportunity to do all the time. It limits us more frequently than the weather or the infrastructure, although the infrastructure can be a challenge, at least for trips that are not super long, under 15 kilometers or so. So our panelists today, and I do invite you to come on to the camera now, are Felicity Borgal, Lisa Corriveau, Natalie Sitt, Matthew Greer, and Fiona Dunlop. And I will be moderating the discussion by every once in a while pointing out a question or a topic. I have a few ready to go from my own list, but I'm also keeping an eye on the chat function. And we may not get to all of the questions, but we'll certainly have a solid discussion. And I'll try to keep the conversation moving. I'd like everybody to keep in mind that we're here to share our knowledge, to do it in a respectful way, and with some, and to note that we have roughly 40 to 50 minutes to do it in. So keep that in mind as you work on your responses. We'll start off with introductions. So I'll just ask everybody, and I'll call on you one by one to introduce yourself. And, you know, we'll dive right into a bit of a conversation starter. I'll ask you, as I just did myself, to let us know, how did you become a winter/family biker? Because that is sort of the focus of this year's Shift into Winter, is riding in winter as a family and including kids. So we'll start with Felicity.
Hi. So I started winter cycling. I kind of like started and then failed, I guess, is the first time. I was told very, very firmly from the bike mechanic at MEC that I didn't need studded tires. I could just go with my thin racing tires and it would be fine. And I went out the first day that it snowed. After that happened, and I think I went 2 meters, got off my bike, walked the 2 meters back to my apartment and said, nope, 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 never happening. Nope, not happening. But I think similar to Assad, it was a sort of a bit of a slow progression. I eventually I moved to a different apartment and discovered that the route into town was plowed. And so I thought, oh, I can do this. I can do a plowed route into town. And so I got a very bad quality winter bike, and I trashed it the next year, and I did the same thing for the next 2 years, and a quality winter bike. And then the summer of 2020, I thought, we're looking to have children. I don't really want to be, trying to get my leg over a high bar on any bike. And so I bought a really good quality winter bike and got pregnant about a month later. And so I spent last winter biking while pregnant. And I'm heading into my first winter trying to figure out how to navigate the world of riding a bike in winter with a child. So I'm here to learn a little bit as well. But certainly any questions on cycling with a child in utero, been there. I've done that one.
Felicity. We're working on getting you on here. You might have to look for the desktop mode of the website on your device, or use a desktop device if you have it. But while we wait, I'll turn the mic over to Fiona. Again, it's the same question. You can introduce yourself briefly and tell us how you became a winter biker.
Hi. So biking has sort of always been a part of my life, and it wasn't really something that I had to get into because I've always done it. And even as a kid, I was in the cargo bike so I didn't really have to get into it. And the last 3 years, I have biked almost every single day in the winter. And if it was ever too hard, then I would walk if there was too much snow or it was too slippery. And before that, I had always walked to school. The route to school was too short to ever be able to bike. It would have been, by the time I unlocked my bike and relocked it, it would have been shorter just to walk. So yeah.
Thanks, Fiona. We'll turn to Natalie.
Hey, my name is Natalie. I live in Calgary. Let's see, I've been, I guess, riding my bike since 2012, but we sold our car in 2009. So we've been living in Calgary without a car for almost 12 years. And so me and my husband started cycling. And then we had a kid in 2015, and that coincided with the cycle track network coming to Calgary. And we had sort of made a decision, like, how long can we go cycling as a family? Because we got a cargo bike. And so she's 6 now. And so we've been cycling through the winter with her since she was 6, or since she was born. And we haven't really looked back since. And I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's tips and tricks for winter cycling, because there's still lots for me to learn.
Natalie, and Lisa has joined us. Hi, Lisa. So we're just doing introductions, and along with a brief introduction, just let us know how you got into winter biking, especially as a family or with kids.
Hi. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
This yeah. Work laptop. So I started bike commuting regularly when I was in my early 20s, and I just didn't stop riding when it got snowy. I just kept going out of stubbornness. And then I rode pretty consistently for quite a while, until I had kids, and then I did a little bit more walking and transit, but we did still bike from when they were babies. And I started winter biking a lot more consistently with them about 4 years ago, when we got our first set of studded tires. So I'll probably be talking a lot about studded tires tonight. But yeah, I'm from Vancouver, so the winters are a little different here. We do get some snow, but mostly it's thin ice and rain that we have to deal with in the winter. So if you have any questions on keeping dry, I got you.
Thanks, Lisa. It's interesting to note that climates, they all have their own challenges. You might not face the same temperatures or snow, but there's still challenges as the weather shifts in the winter. Thanks, Lisa. And Matthew.
Hi, I'm Matthew. I live in the Beltline part, just outside of the corporate part of the city. My wife and I both work downtown. It's usually an 18 or 20-minute walk. And it's having kids that brought us into biking generally. The walk to her daycare to drop her off before work was a little too long, so we started biking her. And then when winter came along, we just sort of rolled straight into that. As Natalie mentioned, our daughters are both the same age, so the cycle tracks came in around the same time, so we felt pretty safe with our daughter doing that. So it's really been about necessity. Our daughter started winter riding 2 winters ago. The cycle track network has been slowly building, and we felt safe taking her throughout the city on that. I know there's been a mention of studded tires already. Last year was her first set of studded tires, and that really expanded where we could go in the city. When we move around, we try to go on bikes and try not to let the snow slow us down too much.
Thanks, Matthew. I can say that I share one of the themes that's emerged from everybody's introductions about just being stubborn or almost too lazy to change your habits as the weather gets colder. And you just put on gloves one day, and you put on a scarf the other day, and you put on a warmer helmet the other, and you keep going. And you realize this is way easier than you think. and you're actually not as cold as you might be walking or waiting for the bus somewhere. So now that we have introductions out of the way, maybe I'll ask, what did you see as a key barrier, if there was one, that almost prevented you or was the hardest thing you had to overcome? And a related question, what do you think is required for more people to be able to embrace year-round riding, especially with families or as youth? And maybe we'll start this one off with, we'll go to Lisa first.
Ooh, that's a lot to answer. I don't know if there was a really big barrier for me doing winter riding with my family. I think it was just the fact that I was carrying the kids on a cargo bike, so I didn't want to slip and fall. So when it was particularly icy, we would tend to take the bus instead. But then, yeah, once I got studded tires and I realized that I could ride through pretty much anything the winter has to offer here, that was it. And we've got, I don't know how many sets of studded tires we have now on various bikes. So I would say one of the barriers that affects people in general, though, is the infrastructure and snow clearing. I mean, if there's not a path where you can ride away from traffic or a road that's really traffic calmed to ride on, people aren't going to risk, slipping around with cars that are also slipping around. And yeah, having the routes cleared with snow or just brined, like they do that a lot. And I don't know if that's a thing in Alberta as much, but they do a lot of brining on the roads just to keep it from getting slippery when it's just around 0 degrees and it gets frosty and a little bit of ice. Yeah, so it's all about the maintenance of the roads, really. I think that makes a big difference too.
I can't disagree. I've been riding through the winter for many years, but I wouldn't consider myself an experienced winter rider until a year or two ago when I left the center city with our excellent cycle track grid, which gets really not 100%, but close to 100% what you'd expect in terms of winter snow and ice treatment. So didn't really have to do anything different to ride, but now I do, because not the entirety of my route gets that same level of treatment. Thank you, Lisa. I'll turn next to Fiona.
I don't think there has been any huge barriers that prevented anything, but I think kind of originally when I started riding every day in the winter, I was kind of scared to slip. So that made me kind of wanting to more go on the side of walking. But then I had studded tires and I realized those work quite well. And snow clearing, just on the pathways even, or on the roads, it's sometimes hard when it's either the temperature that's not cold enough for the snow to be hard and not warm enough to have no snow, so it's all slushy and it's hard to ride without slipping around. I think that's a huge challenge for a lot of people, especially if the snow is deep and dirty. It's not great. I think more pathways would be helpful, and so because the cars are the ones bringing all the dirt all around, so I do think that would be helpful.
Thanks, Fiona. I know in Calgary bike community, the term snert has become very common, and it is a dirt mixture with snow that is the trickiest thing, and one where even the studs are not quite 100% of the way there in providing you grip. And people are chiming in the chat with other names for this. We'll go to Natalie.
I get so yeah, definitely infrastructure, snow clearing is one of them. But I think also for us, it felt like we were one of the few families kind of doing it, and so having lack of role models to encourage us was definitely a barrier. And but slowly, as as my child's gotten older, like we've seen more families jumped into it. More people like buying cargo bikes and cycling through the winter. Like it's interesting to see. Like I used to know, I feel like I used to know all the families in Calgary that owned a cargo bike, and now I see one on the street. I'm like, oh, I don't know that person. Interesting. So it's really great. There's a community, So I think having role models and modeling that behavior is really helpful in encouraging others to pick it up.
Thanks, Natalie. Yeah, I can share that we were not among the pioneers. Some of the people on this panel and many of the people in the audience were there on their cargo bikes with kids a few years before we got around to it, and that was part of what gave us the confidence. And I'll also chime in back to something what Fiona said. Early on, one of the barriers is the fear of falling and slipping, and sometimes you just have to do it to decide that you are still in control. You can walk if it gets too dicey, and that every slip and fall is not necessarily that serious. So, and of course, routes and maintenance are a big part of that. Thanks, Natalie. How about you, Matthew?
I think I might speak to one of the questions that came up in the Q&A. Somebody asked, how necessary do they feel studded tires are? And I would say there are too many factors in my mind to determine what that really is. Having grown up in Newfoundland and then spent some time living in Halifax, conditions are so different from one place to another. And even in Calgary, it can be different from one day or one season to the next. But bikes, the actual bike itself can make a big difference. The person can make a difference. The options along your route can make a big difference. For my wife and I, we're both roughly the same size. So we swap bikes back and she has felt a need for studded tires. She has had some really bad slips in conditions where I haven't quite as badly. We're also fortunate that for our necessary commutes, when we were working in the office or going to bring in our child to daycare, there were cycle tracks, there were roads right next to it that were busy. We would rarely choose that as an option, but there were often sidewalks. And because we didn't have a great distance to travel, we could give ourselves time. So we had ways of sort of navigating and building up to a determination of what we needed. There is a great desire to get more and more equipment. We backpack and hike quite a lot, and I can't remember the last camping trip we went on where of gear, and biking can feel very much the same way. I would say that studs have given us a lot more confidence. There are different styles of studded tires. Some don't have very aggressive grips, but do have good studs. Some have a combination of very aggressive grips and aggressive studs. And when you get the right combination and you get the right conditions, you feel almost unstoppable with it. So to all these questions too about what else do we need, there are so many things that make each person's scenario unique. I would say studs are pretty high up on that list. I do appreciate that they're quite expensive. They often run over $100 a tire. We had a cargo bike and they were $200 a tire. They certainly made it worthwhile for us. So yeah, if you can build some flexibility into your options and sort of take your time and build your confidence up, I think each person can find their own way into riding comfortably in the winter.
Matthew. Yeah, I would agree with that. There's a lot of factors, including the level of snow treatment that your regular routes in the winter will get. When I was living in the center city, I really didn't need studs, although we got them. And now I couldn't do anything just about in the winter without them from where I live. So I do see some of the questions in the chat, and I see some of the panelists are multitasking by getting into the chat between questions, and I encourage all of this. I see Lisa's latest comment, and I'll just add on that I like to think that e-bikes are not only is that overdressing is key, but they all have built-in climate control. How warm do you want to be? Well, that depends on what boost setting you're on. So you can it's really good climate control. If you want to be warmer, turn your boost down. If you want to be colder, turn your boost up. It can help quite a bit. And with that, I'll turn it over to Felicity and Again, the general theme of the discussion right now is what was a big barrier you think that you face or others face to integrating winter biking, especially with kids and families, into your life?
I mean, I feel like this is like a PhD thesis. I could probably write one on this subject. Infrastructure, I echo that. We chose where we lived based on the infrastructure available. We really lucked out in that I started winter cycling through winter being stubborn, but my overlap, the timing overlapped with Ottawa doing a pilot project to clear 40 kilometers of bike lanes, and so that timing just worked perfectly. It's now been put in place permanently, and they've been adding additional sections every year since, which has been absolutely fantastic. Without that, there's no way we could be biking through winter. Not in Ottawa's winters, we get too much snow. I also highly reflect the like stubbornness. I feel I've always been sort of not very swayed by peer pressure. People are more swayed by, well, other people will think I'm crazy for doing this. Other people will think, what will other people think if they see me doing this? And I just don't care. So I think that's a barrier for some people, that they do need to see those positive role models of people who look like them, who have similar backgrounds to them, similar family life. And it's part of the reason why I really try to look normal while riding a bike. I don't have like snazzy gear. I'm wearing my regular coat, my regular boots, and my regular tights and scarf and stuff. And like I try to really not look like a cyclist. I'm a person who's riding a bike. But there's another one that's like maybe a little bit more insidious, that almost put me off, and that's sort of the bro culture of certain aspects of cycling. I mean, I mentioned when I first thought about biking through winter, the guy at the bike shop told me that I would be totally fine riding with just my skinny road bike tires. That's how he rides. So everyone's able to ride like that, and I'll be perfectly comfortable, no problem. Cut through snow. Absolutely not. It was terrifying. Like the 2 meters were the worst cycling I've ever done in my entire life. I was so scared. And I needed that person to say, hey, there's like these things called studded tires, and they exist. And it took me, a good 12 months to do that research, which is so fantastic for people thinking about starting it now, because that research is much more publicly available. And the gear is more available, and it's a little bit cheaper, I guess. Like when I started riding, there was I had a choice between 2 sizes of studded tires. 2. I had to pick my bike to fit the tires. And now there's like lists and lists and lists of studded tires. So in 5, 6, the availability and the price points of options available to people has just absolutely boomed. So a lot of the barriers that I faced getting in have been lowered quite substantially already, and I think that's amazing. What I'm seeing from people who are considering cycling with children now as the biggest barrier is the fear uh, of safety with their children, slipping and falling with their kid on a bike. What happens if a driver doesn't have snow tires and careens into your kid on a trailer? All of which are absolutely completely valid worries and concerns, and all of which would be if you were walking as well. So I think that discussion is still ongoing, but certainly the barrier to entry has been lowered an awful lot in the last 6 years. It's been really impressive to watch the improvements.
I appreciate that, Felicity, and I'd be inclined to agree. I think there's still a lot of barriers out there, but things have certainly improved quite a bit. I note your comments about bro culture, and you also mentioned peer pressure, and I want to sort of turn tacks and talk about something related, which is, one of the biggest problems that parents or really parenting or existing as a young person, um, unwanted advice. Parents get it all the time. Young people get it all the time. Has this happened to you when you're biking, especially with kids and families, from drivers or pedestrians, from other cyclists? It doesn't happen a lot, and but I'll give a couple of examples. Where you've got your kid on a front seat. You're well within the specs of the front seat, and you're told that you must be out of your mind or you're crazy. Or people who've never seen a cargo bike before see you riding down the road and just yell after you, "That doesn't look safe. What if you get hit?" Um, so does that happen frequently? Does that happen to you? And do you feel at all that that's intimidating? Just the same way you might feel intimidated by equipment or infrastructure. And we have talked about a little bit of that. So let's talk about what interactions with other people outside can be like. And I'll start off with this round with turning to Fiona first.
A lot of people, when they see you out winter cycling, they sometimes comment on how what you should be doing. It may be dangerous, safer than being in it. You're less healthier, it's safer, and overall, just a better experience. You get excited for than not excited to get. I never met someone who's been excited to get in their car for their. So I think it's, I think people's stuff like you're crazy or wow, it's cold out. Are you sure you should be doing this? I don't think I don't think they've ever tried winter cycling, or else they wouldn't make comments such as these.
I fully agree, Fiona. I also can tell from my experience that not that my kids talk a lot; they're too young. But the back of the car facing backwards compared to riding on a bike with me, there's an easy contest there. How about you, Matthew? Unwanted advice, and is it intimidating at times or discouraging?
I would say, unfortunately, I've probably had a much more typical male experience. In all my time riding in Calgary, I've only had one person shout at me, and it was in a situation where I was doing something pretty stupid with my very junior rider riding next to me. I wouldn't say I get comments beyond doing anything outside, like getting into the office, people saying, "Oh, I can't believe you biked in," but I got the same comments when I walked into the office. The one great thing about biking, and it's no different than walking other than a lot faster, is that the time is usually very predictable. There's no traffic, and that's one of the things that has kept us living where we're living. It felt the first few years that we were in Calgary, and this is not really a bike discussion directly, but late summer, early fall, we'd start to think, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a house out in the suburbs, have a yard, enjoy all this great color. And then there'd be a snowfall and everybody would be stuck in traffic for 2 hours and I'd still be 18 minutes from home. So no, I try to take a patient approach. I try to realize that my gender probably makes it a little safer and less threatening for me to get into it, and try to educate and encourage others as much as I can. I do try to have some level of, I think role model is probably a little too strong here, but one of the things that keeps me riding through the winter is hoping that drivers see cyclists throughout the year, and they don't need to be reminded that there are cyclists when we first start to get. I'm really getting off topic here. No, I don't get a whole lot of advice. Life has been pretty gentle on me.
I'll just chime in to say I recognize I'm also in a bit of a privileged position there, being 6 foot tall, 200-pound guy, and it's not easy to feel intimidated. So it's never hit me like that. You mentioned choosing where you live, and you're not the only one on the panel who's mentioned that today. Likewise, when we decided to leave the center city, we essentially followed a bike path out as far as we wanted to ride, and e-bikes made that easier until we found a place we liked, and been very happy with it. Continuing on the unwanted advice topic, I have a feeling that our next panelist will have more to say than Matthew or I. I'll turn to Lisa next.
Okay, microphone's on. I can't say that I can't think of any really unwanted advice that I've gotten. I've had for a while there, I had a lot of people saying that I was brave. That was the thing. Ooh, you're brave, like, which I think was kind of a passive aggressive way of saying you're crazy. But there's been some drivers that yell things, and I just ignore them. But yeah, I don't know. There is a pretty good biking culture at my kids' schools, so in rainy days, we're not the only ones on a cargo bike. When the weather's good, the bike racks are full. And I don't know, people don't seem to think it's that wild to be riding. Yeah, I don't know. And those comments don't bug me just because I've been riding in the winter for so long. I'm not going to stop now. So it doesn't turn me off, because it's like, well, I've been doing it for a couple of decades. Why wouldn't I continue, But yeah, I think if you were just getting started, maybe you might second guess yourself, I suppose. But I got started when I was quite young and more able-bodied and no kids, and I falling over and bruising myself up didn't really matter so much. So, but yeah, I don't know. I might, if that happened and I got a comment about cycling in winter being a bit dangerous or whatever, I would probably ask them if they think that walking is dangerous and talk about the statistics there. Or just, Vancouver drivers aren't all that great either. So I don't know if you're that much safer in your car, really.
Lisa. I'll turn to Felicity next.
Yes, we are so brave. I've heard that one a lot as well. So parents get a lot of unsolicited advice, but like pregnant women get a lot of unsolicited advice. And so I was very much expecting to get a lot of like, oh, you're damaging your baby. Cycling while pregnant is going to cause you to have a miscarriage. Like I had the stats in my back pocket about, miscarriage rates from car accidents and seat belts and like all of this stuff. I had it all. And exactly one person was scared, and it was my dad. My doctor, I mentioned, oh yeah, I just like biked to the bus stop, and I took the bus here, when he asked me how I got into the office one day, and he was like, oh, okay, is it like, is your path cleared? Yep. It's like, okay, fine. I mentioned it to my, oh, do you have like nice places to ride? Yep. Oh, great. Keep doing what keeps you active and fit and happy. And like no one commented on the fact that there was this enormously pregnant woman riding a bike except for my dad. And so that was a little bit of a surprise to me, to be honest. And then when my baby came out and I started biking with her in the cargo bike, And obviously this isn't winter, so who knows what's going to happen in the winter. I was once again expecting to get a lot of comments about it, and again, nope, nothing. Lots of older, sort of grandmotherly aged female presenting types, saying that they wish they had that when they had their kids. Lots of dads saying, "Oh, that's really cool." I'm getting like eyes from the construction world, like, "Ooh, that's nice." But no one mentioning that it's dangerous. Lots of people asking like how the car seat fits in and stuff, but no mentions of dangerous. So I'm like still on the edge of my seat waiting for that first comment, and it hasn't happened yet. So I'm sure it's going to happen this winter. Probably from someone who's parked in a bike lane, because that's usually who comments on winter biking being dangerous. It's the ones who are actually making it dangerous. But another thing that like I had mentioned previously that I've noticed this like shift over the past sort of 5-6 years in Ottawa, attitudes towards winter cycling, and it comes up with this as well, where I started and people were to the stores and saying, "Wow, you bike, Jerry, that's crazy, like you can't bike in winter, that's insane." And now I go into the stores with my little helmet, they're like, "Oh, do you use studded tires?" And like, yeah, I do. Like, "Oh, I was thinking about maybe biking this year, but like I never really got around to it. Do you enjoy it?" And then there's this like more of a conversation. And so I don't know if it's just because I'm going into like really granola stores, but it's been a really interesting shift. And I'm still waiting for the first person to tell me that I'm crazy who's not my dad.
I'm pleasantly surprised by the responses from all the panelists in this case. Not that they're great, they're not perfect, but the responses are better, and maybe my experience is a little bit more. I'm happy to hear that. I do agree that the culture is changing, not just the bicycling community, but overall. Some places are further along, especially Vancouver, than others. But I'm pleased to see that everybody's experience reflects this. Now, Natalie, I feel like the chat might have stolen your thunder, but I'm still going to give you an opportunity to chime in.
Yeah, so I've gotten a couple of comments while cycling with my 1-year-old when she was 1, because she was on the front seat and we were going through a cold snap. It was probably like -20, and like, so we were parked or we were waiting at a red light, and the taxi driver rolls up and he rolls down his window and he's like, "Oh, she's cold. You should put a scarf on her." And I was like, dude, the fact that she's got like a full snowsuit on and mitts as a 1-year-old, like it's a success. Like this is, and she would let me know if she was unhappy. There's also, I remember like early, like 5-6 years ago, we would get a lot of stink eye, like, what are you doing with that kid? But now it's just so normal to see kids whizzing by on cargo bikes, so we don't stand out as much. There is a local, I guess, racist and bigot named Larry Heather, and there was a ride. There's a celebration. We had hit 1 million rides on the pilot cycle track in Calgary. And so I'm waiting there because I wanted to get my free cookie. And he leaned into our personal space and said, "Your child is going to die in this war on cars." And I was like, okay, I feel like I had sort of unlocked an achievement to have Larry Heather criticize my life choices. So, yeah.
Noting the time is 7, so we'll take a little bit more time with the panel discussion before wrapping it up. I see that we've addressed some of the questions that are in the Q&A box on the side. We've spoken about studded tires. The chat has answered a lot of the clothing and shoe type questions, although I'll make a plug for Lens heated socks. I've heard great things about them, and I'm on the verge of buying a pair for myself. But I'll sort of ask people to look at the highest rated question, which is interesting, which is from Doug Clark. He's interested to hear how folks handle breakdowns in extreme cold temps. It's -15. I assume he means less than -15, because less than 15 is not a particularly interesting temperature in most of Canada. Maybe in Vancouver. Try to repair, phone a friend, AMA, plan a route with bike shop support. And I'll kind of pair that up with slips and falls. We talked about it as a fear, that's an early barrier, and that most of us, either looking at the stats or with our own experiences, get over it, because it actually doesn't happen a lot. But it can, especially in summer, if you don't see that ice patch or whatever. So what are sort of incidents that have happened to you, whether they're mechanical breakdowns or falls, especially with kids, and how have you dealt with it? And I'll also just invite you to share experiences. It's going to be very different. If you have a 100-pound cargo box, it's very different to deal with a breakdown than your road bike, which you can carry with one hand 5 blocks down to the bike shop. So I'll state I have very limited experience. I slipped a couple of times on my cargo bike with kids, and it just goes on its side. Nobody's hurt. You pick up your bike and off you go. So that's been my experience only so far, but I know that that's not necessarily representative. So for this perhaps last round, we'll start with Matthew.
Thanks. Knock on wood, I've had not a single breakdown in the city, so I'll keep this short. I would usually base what I would bring with us on how far we were going and what my backup plans were. We do have a car. That car has the ability to move our bikes. So if it was just me and my daughter going out and my wife was home, I could feel pretty brave. Lots of times I would go with just what we have on our backs. I have a repair kit that I'd bring along if I was worried about flats or anything like that. But just sort of standard stuff that the farther from home, bring more, but knock on wood, no issues so far.
So Matthew, you might say it's the same kind of thinking for planning a route, regardless of the weather. You look at the risk and the route and you plan accordingly.
Yeah, I could probably plan better. I've certainly had a lucky life in a lot of cases. We're doing a hike in the Grand Canyon in a couple of days. We're going to be down below the rim for 4 days. And in all of our backpacking, we've never had an issue. So I don't really know what to bring for what goes wrong, but it's very much the same sort of checklist going through my head of like, what's reasonable, what could I deal with, and a certain amount of, I can only do so much. Being in the city, being anywhere where it's populated, knowing that you can contact other people, there's almost always some other way out if things get really disastrous. So I try to enjoy it more than worry about it.
Thanks, Matthew. I'll also add a bit of luck and fortune. Again, as I hinted earlier, I'm not one of the pioneers in the space, and bikes have gotten better. People have been doing this a lot longer than me. I've got an e-assist. I've got a belt drive and internal gears, things that were not common at all 5 or 10 years ago, and that makes it a lot easier to maintain or to prevent, because there's hardly anything that can go wrong with that type of bike. How about you, Felicity? Maintenance or incidents or slips and falls in the winter?
Yeah, so I have had a few maintenance issues in the winter when my chain completely broke in the middle of an intersection. So that was a very embarrassing scoot across the intersection to get to the other side and figure out what was going on. So of VeloFix, which I'm guessing probably exists in other cities as well, and the guy who owns it, those of us who bike through the winter, we mostly have his email address or his phone number or his Twitter account. And I swear he spends like half of the winter just like coming around and saving us. So I'm a firm believer in like cutting your losses, locking up where needed, phoning for help. Don't even like I feel like expecting too much from maintenance is a barrier to entry, and knowing that there's a service like VeloFix, knowing that CAA will come and get you if you have a CAA membership, it covers bikes too. That sort of thing is just, it's so helpful to even just know that exists. Yeah, VeloFix, they're my buddies. I spend a lot of money with them.
I'll second the recommendation for a towing company. I know here in Calgary, someone else with an Urban Arrow business cargo bike once had to get bailed out. And as long as you're clear to the dispatcher that you need something akin to a motorcycle or an ATV type of haul, they can figure it out and help you out. So I would second that, depending on your route, if you feel you might need that kind of a rescue. How about you, Lisa?
I've never had a flat in the winter that I can think of. And when I do get flats, most of my riding is in the city, and I'm generally within a kilometer of a bike shop. Like they're everywhere. So when I've had flats on the go, I usually just, pull up Google Maps, what's the closest bike shop, limp there, get them to fix the flat, and then I'm on my way. Because having a flat with like two small children, trying to keep them out of traffic while I change a flat on a cargo bike with an internal gear hub, or the current bike that I ride is an e-bike, and I've done some kind of roadside stuff, but my kids are older now, they won't generally run into traffic, but I still just go to the shop. Or the last flat I got, it happened just at home, so I actually put my electric cargo bike on top of my other cargo bike and took it to the shop rather than fixing the flat myself. Carry shit Olympics was more fun than fixing a flat. But the only winter related issue that I've had was a few years back when we had a Yuba Mundo as our main bike. The rear brake cable didn't get put back through one of the cable guides properly, so it was kind of looping down a little lower than it should, and it got some water into the cable housing, which froze, and then I had the rear brake stuck on when I was trying to get home from the hospital, and my daughter was in there for a few days, and I was just trying to get the other kid home to bed, and it was late, and it was night, and it was icy, and that was no fun. Same thing happened on a school run as well. That time I solved the problem by bringing the bike inside and trying to find the school janitor to see if he had tools, and the ice melted while the bike was sitting in the hallway. So but yeah, we realized what was going on and just moved the cable back, and then we never had the same problem again. But that's the only really winter related kind of breakdown that I've had. So check your cable housings, people. Make sure they're not allowing ice to form in a low part that will stop your brakes from working if you have a cable brake. Anyway, I've got hydraulics now, so hopefully that will be okay.
Thanks, Lisa. How about you, Fiona? Any serious slips and falls, anything that's happened, or maintenance issues that are specific to winter?
For flips, hasn't been anything major. Like maybe when I'm riding in deep snow, I'll fall. Nothing huge. For slips, nothing. With studded tires, it's normally okay, as well as just being careful and avoiding kind of patches of ice. For maintenance, nothing too big. The biggest thing to me is probably like a flat, in which case either if I'm too far, I can walk my bike if it's too late at night, or I can just carry it, or I'm able to. Sometimes it's been the tire has been leaking, in which case I've just had to stop every 5 minutes to repump my tires, but it's never been anything too major. Chains falling off, but I can always put those back, so it's never been anything too huge. Sometimes early morning it can be tough with your gear. My gears sometimes freeze, but it's nothing that affects me too much. Riding, they've warmed up enough. So yeah, sometimes also it can be hard with salt getting on your chain and it becoming a bit, but I've never had a chain, so I don't think that's a huge problem for me. At least I know it's happened to a few people, even people I know. I've seen it happen, but it's never happened to me. So yeah.
Thanks, Fiona. And last but not least, Natalie.
I've luckily never had any slips or falls with my child, but I was taking the cargo bike to work, and so I work up in the northwest of Calgary, so it's about a 10-kilometer ride from my place, and the pathway, it I think it was in like February or March, so we're starting to get those kind of conditions in Calgary where it gets nice and melty during the day, and at night it freezes, so you get ice on the pathway that wasn't there on your ride home. And so I'm going up on my cargo bike, and my cargo bike is electrified, and it's a rear wheel push or assist that I have. And so I'm going up this hill, and I can tell like it's not going to be good because I could feel my wheels slipping on me. And so and then it got to a point where I stopped, and then I just sort of fell over very slowly. So I was left with this choice to push my bike, my very heavy cargo bike, up this very slippery hill. And so I finally got to a point where I could like get on my bike and start riding. But like that day, I was like, I think I will take the C train or the light rail transit home. So I've taken this long tail cargo bike on the C train, surrounded by university students, and I felt really sheepish. But that's kind of been my only fall. I will say my husband has had a spill with my daughter, but that was like she was on the front, and that was before he had studs on. Like it was kind of like late October, so the ice hadn't fully formed. But luckily he had like some sense of self-preservation, and he just pulled the bike on top of him because he knew I'd be very put out if our daughter was hurt. So those are my stories.
Thanks. I'll add to that C train. Well, one time I did have my really, really big cargo bike was completely disabled. I couldn't ride it. So I did take it most of the way to the bike shop for repair on the train. And if you wait for the right train at the right time of day, you can fit a very large bicycle very awkwardly onto the train. But I don't recommend it. I see the time is 7:12. I want to thank the panelists for their excellent contributions. You can see from the chat, between the conversations within the chat and the responses to the conversation that's been happening on video, that people have learned a lot. We've hit a lot of the key points that people have brought up. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time. I think with that, we'll call the panel discussion to a close. And here's our MC, Laura.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. Can I get all the panelists actually to peer back up? Because Dean is going to take a group picture of us all just in a virtual, the virtual class. So we'll just get Fiona, are you still there? Oh, we lost Fiona. I'll do my thank yous, and then Fiona will, I'm sure, will be back by then, and then we will take the picture. So thank you so much to Acid and the panelists, Felicity, Fiona, Natalie, and Matt for sharing, and Lisa for sharing their experiences with us this evening. We actually did a draw for a pair of pants from one of our 2WVU partners at Doer. They have amazing pants there. I love my pair of Doer pants. And Lisa Stewart, I don't know if you're still on, but you're tonight's winner. I'll connect with you about details for that. Big thank you to Brett Bergy and Lindsay Bleak for their help in coordinating tonight's event and connecting with all of our panelists and our moderator. Big thank you to City Calgary for their support of this event again this year. It's so wonderful to have a partner in our very own city to support this kind of conversation. Big thanks to Doug Dunlop. He's offering a $10 off coupon for his pogies. For all of each of the pair purchased, he'll also donate $25 for each pair sold to 2WVU using the coupon code Shift into Winter 2021. If you can check out his pogies, there's a little thing that says Cold Bike at the top of your screen once we get back into the main section. And but Doug will also be at the maintenance table to answer any of your kind of mechanics related questions. Awesome. Dean, are you there and can take a picture of us? Not sure.
Space right now, but I have lots of pictures of you I can splice in if anything.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, I guess thanks to everybody so much for being here. Now we will move to the kind of social portion of our event. You know, people can come and go as you please. And Dean will kind of give a quick little blurb for those who might have missed the initial explanation about how the restaurant part of this this works. But thank you so much to all of you for being a part of this event tonight. This is an event that means a lot to Two Wheel View, and we love bringing this community together, and it's just growing every year, which is really amazing and so awesome to meet so many people. And I think it just allows, you know, people to see that it's possible. And at Two Wheel View, we want all bodies on bikes at all times of the year. So that's one thing that we're really working towards. And so thank you for being a part of that and sharing your wisdom. And I look forward to having some conversations in the panel. I'll be at the Two Wheel View table if you have any questions about what we do. But yeah, we'll get Dean to send us all back to the restaurant, and have a good night if I don't get to chat with you.